this computer. All right, so the action research report that I expect of you is at least like a standard of a journal paper, refereed journal, or conference proceedings, and I expect conventional sections of the paper: title, name and affiliation, abstract, then keywords, and introduction. You may or may not write a heading called purpose of the study, but it will come at the end of the introduction. You will notice that there is no literature review. That is because I would like you to use the past findings to argue, to show that there is a need for this study. So that means you are saying that for this topic, this is what we know about this topic right now based on past research. And this area is still not quite understood. Therefore, studies like this are important. So your literature review is actually used in the introduction to show the gap of knowledge. Method. Afterwards, I will show you the components of the method I expect to see in a well-written paper. Results and discussion, you can combine them, you can separate them. But if you separate and write a separate discussion section, you have to write a substantial one, because every time you open up a heading, you have to put something substantial. That's why I often try to combine them, unless the journal reviewers ask me to separate them or the editor asks me to separate them. Then there is a conclusion. There are also specific things you need to put in the conclusion from what I learned over the years. Then there is references. Okay, from the years of looking at the action research reports of the PGDIP HETL participants, there are certain weaknesses I noticed. Not because you are lousy researchers, but because this is a new field for some of you, because from the sciences, you are now asked to conduct research in the arts. You know, you've never done questionnaires, you've never done interviews, you never thought about analyzing students' work, or don't even know what, you only know how to give marks to the students writing in the assignments and final exam. Later, I will explain to you the wealth of treasure that is in your office and in your computer that you could write up. Let's start with the title. A good title should show the variables and the people studied, but I've got titles that look like book title, not okay. Too specific with the course name inside, like KLM 5012, also not okay, because SOTL has this idea that you need to share your findings with others. You just give your course focus, that will be okay. Like just now, I'm told you have environment and society. Like that is okay, but don't give until the course code and all. Name and affiliation must be complete. Do not use UNIMAS acronym. Think of an international audience. People do not know UNIMAS. You need to give it in full. Think of it as a proper journal with international audience. So you settle your first and family name. No problem for the sciences. You always recognize that you will be cited using your family name. Only problem for some of the people in the language, because they do not follow international conventions. Before I went to Australia, I did my master's in UPM, Masters of Science in Teaching of English as a Second Language. My lecturer there asked me to write paper. I didn't know. I only know my name is Su-Hie, so I put Su-Hie. And then now they appear in Google as he 1994, and he and Talif 1994, things like that. I didn't know, but after that I knew, oh, okay, there is this thing called first name and family name. Okay, keywords. Normally we take from the title, because the title has the variables and other words that you want people to pick up in their search. Don't give unimportant ones. This is more to do with the visibility and the impact of your paper later. Abstract. You write within 200 words, and you don't use the abstract to write introduction. I often see this in the assignments given to me for this action research. And not only that, I also see in the grants that I evaluate. No. Abstract is not for introduction. Abstract is very specific purpose. You put in the aim of your study. You put in details of the method that people must know, and you put in the results. These are the 3 compulsory elements of an abstract. The extras are the beginning and the end. The beginning part is the context. Some people put in like 2 sentences to give the research gap to say why this topic is important to be studied. And the last part is they put in the implications of the findings. The findings suggest that what? A little bit of extrapolation to show your contribution to the field. You know, now I talk to you with confidence because there are actually research. There are groups of people in the world who study how abstract is written. And in the days way back in like 2006, when I didn't know how to write abstract, I had to look at samples and I figure out what are they doing here. But later when I knew that there is this kind of research, oh, there are certain rules on what should go into the abstract. And also conclusion, I will share with you later. But certainly do not give general introductory material. Therefore, you write your abstract last, never write it first. If you write it first, your mind is still figuring out, introducing yourself to the area. So you will write introductory material, cannot. Okay. Introduction, very hard to write. For me, in a paper, the very hard parts are the introduction and the discussion. And so this is just a technique of writing. After writing so many papers, getting so many rejected, probably written 500 papers. Okay. You write a sketch of your thoughts for the introduction. Then you go on and write your method, because method is very easy to write. It's just reporting what actually happened. Okay, what I do is I will write the method properly and I will go to the results. Results also easy to write because everything is there. You have analyzed it. It's just reporting it clearly. Then after that, go back to the introduction and write it, because by now you know where your results are heading. You can make your gap better. So never write general information. Some of what I have seen is they did move on a bit, but they get stuck on the general topic. They never move on to their area. Let's say they are studying student motivation and academic performance. You actually have to move into studies that report the relationship between motivation and academic performance. You cannot be stuck on motivation. You also cannot be stuck on factors that influence academic achievement, because those are very general. You have to move to your specific topic of your study, and you should cite findings on those that study the relationship between those 2 variables. And from there, you use it to show that there is a gap of knowledge. Aim and objectives. Yes, you may be lecturers, but I've also received papers in this course that do not have very satisfactory aim and objectives. Aim is broad, is umbrella that can cover the objectives. And objectives, it should be written clearly so that when I look at it, I get a hint of what your data might be. And I can somewhat also imagine what your data tables might look like. You know, this is how good objectives should be written. It is a measurement of whatever variables you are studying. So it gives a hint of that. If I say English proficiency, you don't know what it is. But if I tell you MUET scores, then you know this is a measurement. It shows the kind of data. Okay, method. There are 5 components, essential components of method that should appear in a well-written paper in education, in my field, and I believe in the arts. In the past, I could not write enough information on the method. Small paragraph, maybe 50, 100 words. And I was happy with that until in 2008, one reviewer for this Australian journal said, I was not transparent about the method. I was thinking, I'm not trying to hide anything. It's just that I didn't know how to write it long. So that comment actually made me study all the papers, you know, how they make it that long. Oh, after that, I discovered that, oh, it must have 5 essential components. I got no problem. I can write it very long, but if the paper needs a certain word count, I will cut it down to make it concise, but the information will still be there. Okay, research design. I introduced just a few terms that is likely what you might be doing. Descriptive, correlational, experimental. Later, in the session after this, I'll go into that a little bit. Participant description, always not enough details on the people, who they are, what kind of a background they come from, how many, where they are, when was the data collected, and why, because why is the selection criteria. You don't get everybody out there, you get those that fulfill what you need. If you want engineering students, you can only distribute your questionnaire to engineering students. You cannot distribute to the whole of UNIMAS students. So you need to have some certain selection criteria, and it must be stated. This is very important. So some of you might ask me, is a class of 30 enough? Yeah, definitely okay for this assignment you are doing, and also for descriptive studies. But you cannot say, I want to generalize the findings. This is true of all the students in Malaysian universities. Got problem because it's only your class of 30. Don't know whether it's applicable to the whole of UNIMAS also. So when you take a very small sample like this that comes from a very selected group, you have a problem of generalizability and representativeness. Okay, but it's still okay. You just admit that as a limitation of the study. You want to calculate acceptable sample size. I think the econs, the FEP people, very good in calculating. I actually also learned this from some of my colleagues there. But I can tell you this, for very big populations also, you probably only need to study 384 or 400 respondents. If you set the competence level at 95% or error tolerance of 5%. Okay. Okay. For myself, when I do a study, I try to exceed 100 so that it looks respectable. There is no rule on that. That's why I don't put it on my slide. But from my own experience, I would do 100 plus. If I can, I will try to exceed 200 so that it looks respectable. Okay. Of course, how much you claim of it will bait researcher to comment on it. If you claim that this is applicable to Malaysia, they will say, hey, 100 participants only. So it depends on how you put the information across. I have something more to say about participant description. Do not simply use the word random sampling. This is where the English word random has different meanings in research and in coffee shop talk outside. Random sampling in a lot of people's mind is simply sampling, which is convenient. People around me, I teach you one word to use, call it purposive sampling. I have used this in ISI papers, no problem, because I give the selection criteria. But don't simply use random sampling. Random sampling is very systematic. You know, you actually need to know the whole population. Okay, like UNIMAS lecturers, 1 to 800. I get the whole list. I give the number 1 to 800, and I say I only want 100. So I will take number 800 divided by 100. I will take number 8, number 16, number 24, number 32, etc. And then I will contact these people and give them the questionnaire. Now that is called random sampling because it gives everybody among the 800 lecturers of UNIMAS the equal chance to become a participant of the study. No biasness, no selectiveness. So whatever findings I get, I can say this is true of the UNIMAS academic population. So after this, no more simply using the word random. But if you do this, yes, you are qualified to use the word. I have here some details on different kinds of sampling.
Dr. Ting, sorry, Dr. Ting, Shafina here.
Yes.
Maybe we have, I think Nur Azlina, she's not aware. She's got 2 devices going. So I think she's not aware one of her device is not muted.
Oh, so what should I do?
I was hoping you would tell her, but I realized that you are teaching us, so maybe you didn't realize. Sorry, Azlina.
Okay, so I think she heard already.
Yeah. Sorry about that because it's being recorded. No problem. It happens all the time. Okay, sorry, Dr. Ting, you may continue.
All right, thank you. So we have two types of sampling here. I show you probability sampling and non-probability sampling. Probability sampling is better because everyone has a chance of being selected. So what I described to you is simple random sampling. You might do stratified sampling. You say, I want equal number of males and females. So you then pick equal number, but within the equal number, you must use a system also. You can do cluster sampling when you cannot list all the members, but you can select clusters, you know. Let's say like group 1, group 2, group 3. So each the cluster are selected. The cluster are selected randomly using a system, but then you survey everybody in the clusters that are selected. So let's say people want to study the public uni in Malaysia. Is it 22 now? So you pick random. I only want to study 5. So you list the 22, you pick the 5 using a system. You can do flip a coin also. It's okay. You flip a coin, you say all the heads I will take. So you take until you get your 5. That's fine. Then everybody in that university you study something like that. That is called cluster. Systematic, what I described to you just now. The simple random, you use the random table that the young people may never see anymore, although I use it when I was doing mathematics. Okay. Now, the not so good kind of sampling, but still okay. Non-probability, I say purposive sampling. You judge the sample to be typical or representative. Of course, your judgment may be wrong, but so far it's okay. I don't have papers rejected because I say it's purposive sampling. Okay. Third component, just now the first one was research design. Normally I try to mention it. Secondly, was the participant must have enough information. What I see is not enough information. So when you write your assignment for me, make sure you have enough information. Instrument must have enough information. In the sciences, your instrument are those like, you know, thermometer and more complex equipment. But in the SOTL research, the instrument might be a questionnaire, might be interview questions, might be your test questions, might be an analysis framework if you are going to analyze the students' writing. Not enough info? Well, I've got people who write like 30 items using 5-point Likert scale, and I have no idea what the 30 items are. At least you give the sections of the questionnaire, then I know, oh, it is intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation, and CGPA scores, you know, things like that. You must mention so that people have an idea what your instrument is measuring. I know the idea of analysis framework may be new to you. If you're analyzing student answers, you need to have a certain guide, you know. It looks a bit like your sample answer to say that this is what is considered acceptable. And this is not about giving marks. This is saying this kind of information, 5 kinds I expect to see, and what kinds are missing. It is actually going down to that kind of analysis as a researcher. The fourth kind of information in method that is missing, data collection and data analysis, not enough details. So not enough details means cannot imagine how the study was done, do not know whether things are done properly or not. So there is lack of transparency. And one other problem I found is cannot tell the difference between data collection and data analysis. Collection, you collect from out there and it is in your hand or in your computer if you use a Google online form for your questionnaire. Okay, it's in your hand, in your computer. Now, what do you do? There the analysis starts. So you have to separate the two. You cannot mix them up. I often see them mix up. I mean, yeah, last semester, every semester. So hopefully this semester, no mixing up. Analysis. Something like this, the answer scripts were analyzed to identify the kinds of information present. What on earth is being analyzed? I don't even know the kind of information, so no good. It's too general. If you had an analysis framework, you can say the answer scripts were analyzed to identify the kinds of information based on table 1, the analysis framework. So we know already just now what is it. And later I will show you an example. And for well-written data analysis section, Especially if it is qualitative data that you're analyzing, you should review the areas where it was difficult for you to analyze. And this is how you resolve it. If you see this, I consider this. If you see that, I consider this something else. This is very important. This actually increases reliability of the results for future people who want to replicate. So these are some of the details I told you that I learned to provide, and now I can write very clear method. I'm not trying to hide things, but now I know how to write clearly to tell people how I did the study. Okay, I have talked about this. Results and discussion. Less of a problem over the years, really less since we started this. At first, I saw results which were very unfocused, and they even give me the raw data, but hardly any analysis. But it has improved a lot already. Okay, we are supposed to describe the results according to the objectives of the study, because the objectives actually guide it, but we don't copy and paste exactly the objectives as the heading. We take the keywords from the objective and paste it there as a heading, so that will guide us. Now, one omission is that some people forgot to ask me to refer to table 1 or table 2. They just say table below, table above. I think you should know that every table, every figure needs to have a number, and you always refer to them using the number, no above and below. Discussion, I told you, very hard to write. Some people do a pretend discussion. You mention certain names, certain citation. It looks like it's got discussion, but it's not very real. Because you do not know that much of that study, you don't actually know how the findings differ from yours or is similar to yours. I am telling you the good ones. You don't have to do it if you feel that you are not able to read that much, but at least I tell you a good discussion is one where you actually know those few studies very well. You know the findings, and you not only know the findings, because in the arts, when you study human beings, you know the type of people who wrote that kind of essay, because the level of the students, the background of the students all affect how they write. So we need to know a little bit about how the kind of people, and also how they analyze. You see, so there is a certain background to the findings that we expect to be brought in for the comparison. So then it is no more pretend comparison. And if you happen to have 2 sets of data, you did both interview and questionnaire, you should actually compare the results, because they may not agree. They could be different, and different is okay, because definitely it will be different. For me, I do research on language use and ethnic identity, and I have come across studies, and later I found that it's true for myself also. If we give questionnaire, the people give quite politically correct answers, but when they are interviewed, sometimes they reveal that a lot of decisions were based on ethnic factors. So this is also true in the UK in terms of the school choice. They pick certain schools because there are more of their own kind of people there. But if you give questionnaire to them, they will never tell you that, but it comes up in the interviews. So if you have 2 sets of data, you need to compare them, triangulate them, and then discuss. It's okay. It is actually showing complexity in your results, and that is good. Finally, conclusion. This is the secret to it. There are 5 elements in a good conclusion. First, you summarize the key results based on the objectives of the study. Maybe 1 to 2 sentences each. Then you talk about the great contribution of your finding to the field. Of course, after you talk about the great contribution to the field or to the practical context, you must say, yes, I know it's got certain limitations, which is like this. Therefore, future researchers can do studies to investigate this further, although I didn't quite investigate, but you don't have to tell them that. They know when you mention the limitation. So there is a storyline there to a good conclusion. Okay, references. I just say here that you use APA 7 edition, but I know many of you may not be familiar, so I'm okay if you are consistent. If you are not consistent, then it's not okay. But if you can try to use APA 7 edition, it is good. All right. So that's what I have to share about writing your papers. I do encourage you to publish your SOTL paper. You can develop a side dish, a liking for the side dish, apart from your main areas of research. I have put here certain SOTL journals. You can try. The one on top here is Scopus. The one at the bottom is refereed. The two at the bottom are refereed. And this is more refereed. Catalyst now goes by the name of HBDS, Human Behavior and Development in Society or Studies. I'm not sure, sorry. But they are quite open to articles from different fields. KKU is also a Thailand journal. I share this with you because during the 2020 MCO, I was at home so many months and I wrote so many papers from all the FYPs and master's work until I ran out of options for journals. I searched for journals, university by university, to find Scopus Index journals. And you'll be surprised, Chulalongkorn actually has a number of Scopus Index journals. So that's why I came across some of these. Of course, you know, some of the data are not so good. They cannot go to Scopus journal. So I sent to referee because I do want my findings to be out there. Work not published is work not done. This is a lecturer I met when I was doing my PhD. He's from my church. So he kind of encouraged me in my research once in a while. You know, PhD is very tough journey. So everybody who finished, yes, very good. I know Mujan is going through her PhD. It's a very tough and lonely time. So yeah, you do need encouragement. Okay, I want to briefly show you a paper. I stop share here. A paper that I published based on data from my students' assignment. Maybe later. Okay.